Hello, I'm Lisa LaFlemme. Good evening to our viewing audience here in the studio and watching from home. Tonight, on this special broadcast of CTV News, I'm pleased to extend a warm welcome to a very special guest, General Peter Devlin, the Commander of the Canadian Army. Good evening, General Devlin.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's our privilege, truly. Now our audience is undoubtedly been following closely the events that have been transpiring in the Middle East over the last several years. It seems that there is conflict after conflict, and one of the conflicts that Canada has been very heavily invested in has been in Afghanistan. So, I know people would like to gain a greater understanding of our role over there. So I'll hand the floor over to some of the reporters from various outlets who have been agreed to be with us tonight. Members of the media, please feel free to address any questions to the General.
General John Smith from the Global Mail. I'm wondering, on behalf of our viewers, what was the main event that influenced Canada to bring troops to Afghanistan?
That's a great question, John. The main event that influenced us to go to Afghanistan was 9/11, which caused the deaths of about 3,000 people. When the Al-Qaeda attacked our ally, the USA, by hijacking 4 passenger airliners and crashing them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, we decided that it would be best to put an end to the terrorism and to help prevent an event like this from ever happening again. We went to Afghanistan in alliance with NATO and the UN. We feel that it is our duty to protect innocent souls from terrorism and ensure they can live a life free from worry.
Patty Garcia, Windsor Star. General, when and where did Canada deploy troops in Afghanistan?
Well, Patty, in October 2001, we first started sending Canadian service members from the Canadian Navy and Air Force to patrol the waters around Afghanistan. Then in December 2001, we sent the first ground troops to Afghanistan. They were the elite commandos from the Joint Task Force 2 unit. Later in January 2002, more Canadian troops moved into Afghanistan. The Canadian troops were first deployed in Kandahar, where they met up with the British and American forces who were already fighting against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The Canadian forces were also deployed in Kabul, which is Afghanistan's capital city.
James Waterford III from the Montreal Gazette. General, what would you say the size of the Canadian presence was in Afghanistan? And what did the Canadian troops do in Afghanistan?
Well, John, the International Security Assistance Force, also known as ISAF, which was led by NATO, it consisted of about 700 Canadian troops who served in Kabul. The amount of Canadian troops served in Afghanistan grew way larger over the years, and it included about 40,000 servicemen, which included tanks, artillery, and infantry involved on the ground. I'm sad to say, though, that 1,800 Canadian soldiers were wounded during the battles, and 158 soldiers died in the war, alongside a few citizens and reporters. We must never forget the sacrifices that these men and women made for us, and we shall always keep them in our prayers. Our main goal, however, in Afghanistan was to help turn it into a safer country that would be more stable, secure, and better governed. Our intentions were to kick out the terrorist forces from Afghanistan and to ensure a safer environment for the people. We had 6 major operations that took place in Afghanistan. These were Operation Apollo, Accius, Athena, Argus, Archer, and Operation Attention.
Hector Delgado, the Ottawa Citizen. Who were the Canadian troops fighting in Afghanistan?
We were actually fighting 2 different enemies in Afghanistan. They were the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So the Taliban was a Sunni Islamist terror group, and it developed from a pro-Pashtun nationalist organization. They had power over much of the country since 1996. The other group, I'm sure which most of you have heard of, was the same group responsible for 9/11, the Al-Qaeda. Their main leader was Osama bin Laden, which is a terrorist at large, and many of their members were hiding in the mountainous, hard-to-access regions of Afghanistan.
I'm Emma Umberto from the Vancouver Sun. Did the Canadian Army successfully complete its intentions in Afghanistan, General?
Well, Emma, I would have to say the answer is yes. The Taliban was stripped of most of its power in the country, and the Al-Qaeda, for the most part, left the country. We couldn't just leave the country after we defeated the enemies, though. We also had a moral obligation to help Afghanistan to rebuild itself, so that it would not be vulnerable to these sorts of groups again. So under the jurisdiction of NATO, we will continue to have a presence in the country. We helped to build greater security in Kabul, and we played a big role in developing the Afghan National Army. We helped the country towards controlling national elections. These were all really significant accomplishments that the Canadian troops helped to make happen. Unfortunately, we did suffer huge losses while fighting and controlling Kandahar. We lost a lot of soldiers, and although the city was saved, our presence in Afghanistan was rethought by the government.
PJ Gray, Calgary Sun. From your perspective, General, what impact did the war have on Canada?
Well, as you probably know, we were at war in Afghanistan for a long time. I believe that it was longer than our involvement in the First World War and Second World War combined. The Canadian forces took part in one of the most dangerous assignments of the war, which was the fighting at Kandahar. Kandahar was the central of the Taliban movement, and we Canadians saw some of the most brutal fighting at Kandahar since the Korean War. Although we had many great successes throughout the war, I'm sad to say that out of the NATO alliance, we Canadians sustained the highest per capita casualty rate. But it is because of these troops that we have succeeded so greatly in Afghanistan. Canada has earned a lot of prestige on the world stage from our efforts in Afghanistan. There is a common cliche which states that Canada has punched above its weight. I would agree with this saying because the Canadian forces did an outstanding job over in Afghanistan. It is because of these great victories that Canada has achieved what has achieved in the war, that makes me say has a good impact on Canada and Canadians as a whole.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our time for this special event program. I do feel, General, that we're certainly gained a deeper understanding of the role and success of the Canadian forces in Afghanistan. Thank you so much, General Devlin, for your presence here tonight. And thank you, as well as our guest reporters, and to you, our audience. Good night.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you for